Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss another Daily Express take on Brexit, as they try to persuade us that despite all the mountains of paperwork that businesses now face, they insist that actually businesses don't want us to join the EU. Quite remarkable, because every week there's another load of businesses calling for us to do just that. I could do a channel just based on reporting on each business. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So we've got another live one in the Express. Yesterday they were trying to persuade us that the migrant boat crisis was the fault of the EU, even though that meant having to acknowledge that it wouldn't have been an issue without Brexit. Now they are being quite open about the oppressive level of paperwork that Brexit has forced on businesses, but that they reject the idea of rejoining the EU. Now, this is really something. The words used in the byline of the article are that businesses are drowning in paperwork. That's their words. Now, surely that is the sort of emotive language you'd be using if you wanted to attack Brexit. But this is almost like the Express going, right, look, we can't deny the hideous problems that Brexit is causing any longer. No point swimming upstream on that one. So we'll just change tack to claim that even with all the drowning in paperwork, that businesses are still thinking we should stay outside the EU. Which immediately demands the answer to two questions. First, what sorts of businesses are saying they don't want to rejoin? Because there's a huge list of businesses on record saying they do. Indeed, business leaders of entire sectors of our economy are saying we should at least join either the single market or the customs union, or both, depending on the nature of that business and which one has particularly hit them. Second, on what basis is any business drowning in paperwork claiming that it would still be better to remain outside the EU? So let's see now. They do indeed have a list of businesses adding their tuppence in. So the first business quoted is the Hummingbird Agency in Peterborough. So first of all, you go, okay, do they do a lot of trade with the EU then? Have they worked out a way to make Brexit work? No, they're a digital marketing company. A company which thrives when businesses are struggling, let's be honest. But just because this is a business which does well when the business environment is poor, doesn't mean they don't have a good point to make. So on what basis do they claim that being outside the EU is worth this drowning in paperwork? Which, by the way, they don't have to bother with because, you know. His first point is the bureaucratic red tape that business had to deal with in the EU. Nope, didn't exist, by the way. As I've explained no end of times, the EU removed bureaucracy. That's what they did. In fact, this even contradicts the Express byline. It said, remember, businesses were drowning in paperwork. The implication being so much paperwork couldn't actually cope. So the bureaucracy has massively increased since Brexit. Even the Express don't bother to argue against that anymore. So what was the point of publishing this non-answer? So what about the next argument? They say it constrained our ability to forge new trade deals outside the bloc. Nope, made them easier. Case in point, every trade deal with the EU, and it has way more than we do, is better than the equivalent for us. Their trade deal with Japan, way better than our terms. New Zealand, way better. Australia's on the way, be way better. All better terms. They even have better terms with the US, for goodness sake. So this guy, representing a business which is benefiting from businesses struggling because of Brexit, because it's a marketing agency and struggling businesses have a greater need for marketing help, doesn't even have any valid reasons to remain outside the EU. Okay, so that one's a dud. What about the next business? So the next one is called International Trade Consultancy. Check them out. And again, surprise, surprise, another business which benefits from Brexit because they advise on international trade processes, something that no British business needed before Brexit if its customers were entirely within the single market. The point of the single market is you can sell internationally without needing to know the first thing about selling internationally. So of course a company that helps you export is going to get way more business with Brexit, because all of a sudden all those businesses that now need to trade with countries in the single market need their help, and they didn't before. So they're self-interested as well, but did they at least give a valid reason for remaining out? The representative claims that we won't get the same terms as we left on. No, this is true. But isn't it a better question, will we get better terms than being a third country? Because the answer to that would be a resounding yes. That is not a reason not to go back. She then gave a second reason, that having gone through the pain of adapting to trade with the EU from the outside, it would be madness to reverse Brexit so soon. No, would make a lot of sense. Because there is no pain of trading with the EU when you are inside the EU. That's the point. It's not a different way of doing things. It's an easier way of doing things. The pain is in being a third country and only in being a third country. It's never been inside the market. That's where the pain disappears. And then you could tell this was a bad faith actor. Not just because what she said wasn't true, because you might think, well, maybe she's a fool. It's because she said we'd signed several trade agreements with US states. No, we haven't. It's not actually possible. US states don't sign trade agreements. That is for the national government to do, just like in any other country. Imagine trying to report that Hampshire has just signed an international trade agreement. Who would take that seriously? What she's referring to are the memoranda of understandings that we have signed with some different states. These are not trade agreements. They don't unlock any trade. They're just a wish list of things we'd like to bring up should any trade talks ever start up again. And she will know that in her business as well. She's not a fool. She's a liar. Mind you, the Express did quote her as saying that we should rejoin the EU, probably just not yet. Right, on to the next business. I'll do this as the last one. There was a string of them. They're all the same. This one is called Ensurity. Now, this is another agency which provides training for businesses. So, another one whose business model does not involve trade with the EU. Assuming that all their customers are UK based, but judging by the very amateur nature of their website, seriously, I've produced better websites than that, I would say their portfolio is fairly modest indeed. Don't think this is a big international company, if I'm honest. So another business with no EU trade telling us what we should do about the Rejoin debate. But did they at least make some good points? No, I'm not convinced this one even tried. He talked about being held by bureaucracy. But we have more bureaucracy now with Brexit. Like I keep saying, the point of the EU is to remove red tape. The Express even accepts that there's way more bureaucracy with Brexit. So any argument that says, oh, there was bureaucracy in the EU, it's like, no, there wasn't. There was a removal of bureaucracy. Just because Brexiteers spent decades telling us, oh, EU bureaucracy, EU red tape. No, it was removed. He also said, if we return, we'll be the new kid on the block with lots of new changes for businesses to navigate. No, rubbish. Businesses with trade inside the EU already have to do that anyway. In fact, right now, what they have to do is they have to make sure they know what the latest changes are in UK legislation and EU legislation. Two regulatory frameworks, right? So they have to do that to a much greater degree. And also because it's not consistent between different member states. But as for getting used to new processes domestically, you might say, well, you know, what about a business that doesn't trade with the EU either? They'll have to get used to a new way of doing things. Well, that happens all the time anyway. We have whole government departments whose only job is to legislate for new laws and regulations which businesses have to stay on top of. At least when the EU do it, they give several years' notice before they come into effect and lots of accessible advice on how to comply, sometimes with grants if needed. We have a government who make up new rules on the fly, give you no time or funding to adapt. Remember, they're going to remove hundreds of regulations at some point at the end of this year. They still haven't said exactly which ones or what the impact's going to be or what your business has to do to adapt. No money for it. I could go on. But as I say, the list, and there was a list of different businesses, they were all the same sort of business. They were all agencies that are there to provide advice or training to British businesses. All fairly, you know, small in their own way, and none of whom have to actually trade with the EU. They don't produce anything or sell. And they all had the same spurious arguments, which are either untrue or irrelevant. The bottom line is that the vast majority of businesses in the UK have not gained from Brexit and a large number have suffered. That is why whenever you have like an annual conference for a business group, a lobby group, or a trade body, they're always talking about the damage caused by Brexit and, depending on which sector of the economy they're in, why it would be much better if we could join the single market or the customs union or both. The success stories are those who've managed to struggle on. Like at one point early in the article, the Express tried to claim that our exports to non-EU countries have increased. No, they've gone down. They're playing the old not taking inflation of the pound into account again. When you compare like for like, they've gone down. Really, we're 2.5 years out from this hard Brexit. Those who backed it should be able to point out to lots of obvious benefits by now. Not trying to lie about spurious little ones, not trying to make excuses for the damage. They should be saying, but look all the extra trade we're getting. But they're not able to without lying. They're just trying to convince people that there are some benefits and come up with excuses for the damage. And it wouldn't even matter if there were some benefits, because it's net benefits we need. Are the benefits worth the drawbacks? But as it happens, it's a much easier debate because there are no actual benefits. There are some businesses, individual businesses like these agencies, who benefit from the extra bureaucracy because they are a business that helps other businesses understand how to cope with the bureaucracy. So they make money from other businesses struggling. So of course they like Brexit, but they are limited in number. But if the Express really wants to convince us that Brexit is still better than rejoining and that the business community thinks so, despite what he said in every trade journal and business paper, they can quote some businesses who produce and sell things. Until then, I think I'll pay attention to the litany of woe in trade journals and business papers because they are more credible. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.